Japan's brutal occupation of Korea, a young guerrilla fighter named Kim Song-ju made a name for himself leading raids against the Japanese. He adopted the name Kim Il-sung after a legendary Korean warrior and eventually fled to the Soviet Union, where he became a major in the Soviet Red Army. When World War II ended and Japan surrendered, Korea was split in two, with the Soviets occupying the north. The Soviets needed a local leader to install, and they chose the 33-year-old Kim Il-sung, who returned to his homeland a hero. With the backing of Soviet power, he was made chairman of the provisional government. He quickly consolidated his position, pushing out rival communist factions and nationalists, and built the powerful Korean Workers' Party with himself as its chairman. In 1948, he officially declared the founding of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. 2 years later, convinced he could unite the peninsula by force, he ordered the invasion of South Korea, starting the devastating Korean War. The war ended in a stalemate with North Korea utterly destroyed, but Kim used the devastation to his advantage. He purged his remaining rivals, blaming them for the war's failures, and solidified a massive cult of personality, presenting himself as the nation's great leader. He introduced an official state ideology of juche, or self-reliance, further isolating North Korea from the world. He then went a step further than any other communist leader, naming his own son as his successor and creating a hereditary dynasty. The man who rose to power on the principles of Marxism, an ideology that sought to abolish class and hereditary privilege, ended up creating the world's first and only communist monarchy. Fidel Castro was the son of a wealthy sugarcane farmer, a brilliant and restless law student with a burning sense of Cuban nationalism. His political career was cut short in 1952 when General Fulgencio Batista seized power in a military coup, canceling the upcoming elections. Convinced that legal challenges were useless, Castro organized a daring attack on the Moncada military barracks with a small group of rebels. The assault was a complete failure, and Castro was arrested, but at his trial he gave a famous speech ending with the words, "History will absolve me." After being released in a political amnesty, he went to Mexico, where he met an Argentine doctor named Ernesto Che Guevara. They returned to Cuba aboard a leaky yacht named Grandma with 80 other rebels, but were ambushed upon landing, with only about 20 surviving to flee into the Sierra Maestra Mountains. From this tiny corps, they launched a guerrilla war, winning the support of the local peasantry by promising land reform. Batista's army was corrupt and demoralized, and Castro's reputation grew with each successful raid and a famous interview in the New York Times. As other resistance groups launched attacks in the cities, Batista's regime began to crumble. The final blow came when Che Guevara's forces captured the key city of Santa Clara. On New Year's Eve 1958, Batista fled the country. Castro's forces rolled into Havana, and on January 8, 1959, he arrived to a hero's welcome. In his fight for power, he promised the restoration of democracy and denied he was a communist, seeking legitimacy from the United States. He would go on to build the first communist state in the Western Hemisphere, becoming America's most enduring adversary. For most of his life, Augusto Pinochet was the model of a non-political career military officer. He was a serious, disciplined soldier who rose steadily through the ranks of the Chilean army, an institution proud of its long tradition of staying out of politics. In 1970, Chile elected Salvador Allende, the first openly Marxist president to be democratically elected in Latin America. Allende's socialist reforms, like nationalizing the copper industry, deeply divided the nation and alarmed the United States at the height of the Cold War. As Chile spiraled into economic crisis and political unrest, Allende came to trust Pinochet, promoting him to commander-in-chief of the army in August 1973. He believed Pinochet was a loyal constitutionalist who would help him prevent a military takeover. Just 3 weeks later, on September 11, 1973, Pinochet led a swift and brutal coup against the government he had sworn to defend. The presidential palace was bombed by the Air Force, and by the end of the day, President Allende was dead. Pinochet was initially just one member of a four-man military junta, but he quickly outmaneuvered the others. He was named president of the junta and began a systematic campaign to eliminate all leftist opposition. Congress was dissolved, political parties were banned, and thousands were arrested, tortured, or disappeared. He would rule Chile for the next 17 years, imposing free market policies that rebuilt the economy while crushing political freedom. The man who cloaked his takeover in the language of national salvation and honor spent his old age fighting extradition on charges of human rights abuses. The general who believed he was above the law was ultimately brought down by the very legal systems he had once dismissed. Idi Amin began his career as a cook's assistant in the British colonial army in Uganda. A physically imposing figure and a heavyweight boxing champion, he rose through the ranks, becoming one of the first Ugandan commissioned officers. After Uganda's independence in 1962, Amin became a trusted ally of the new Prime Minister, Milton Obote. He was promoted to commander of the Army and Air Force, helping Obote consolidate power and put down rebellions. But the relationship soured as Obote grew wary of Amin's increasing power and began investigating him for corruption. In January 1971, while Obote was out of the country attending a summit in Singapore, Amin decided to strike first. He staged a military coup, seizing control of the capital, Kampala, with his loyal troops. He justified the takeover by listing 18 grievances against Obote's government and promised a quick return to civilian rule, a message that was initially popular. 1 week after seizing power, Major General Idi Amin declared himself president of Uganda. His rule quickly turned brutal. He launched purges against ethnic groups loyal to Obote, and in 1972, ordered the expulsion of the country's entire Asian population. His behavior became increasingly erratic and grandiose, as he gave himself titles like Lord of all the beasts of the earth and fishes of the seas. After a disastrous invasion of neighboring Tanzania in 1978, Tanzanian forces and Ugandan exiles counterattacked, forcing Amin to flee into exile. He often professed his great love for Scotland, declaring himself the last king of Scotland, and even offering to be the head of the Commonwealth. The man who styled himself a conqueror of the British Empire died and was buried not in Uganda or Britain, but in Saudi Arabia. Muammar Gaddafi was born in a desert tent, the son of a Bedouin goat herder. Inspired by the pan-Arab nationalism of Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser, he enrolled in the military academy with a singular goal: revolution. In the 1960s, Libya was a poor monarchy ruled by the aging King Idris, a regime Gaddafi and his fellow young officers saw as corrupt and too close to Western powers. While still a junior officer, Gaddafi secretly formed the Free Officers movement within the army, patiently plotting for years. Their chance came on September 1, 1969. With King Idris abroad in Turkey for medical treatment, Gaddafi, then just a 27-year-old captain, launched his coup. The takeover was meticulously planned and virtually bloodless. Within hours, the Free Officers had seized control of the country. Gaddafi abolished the monarchy and proclaimed the Libyan Arab Republic, his Revolutionary Command Council taking control. He promoted himself only to the rank of colonel and developed his own political philosophy, a mix of socialism and Islamic theory laid out in his Green Book. Flush with oil revenue, he poured money into social programs, but also sponsored revolutionary groups and extremist acts around the globe. His 4-decade rule was a blend of revolutionary ideology and eccentric personal pageantry. His end came in 2011, during a popular uprising inspired by the Arab Spring. He began his life embracing the simple, nomadic traditions of the Bedouin, a culture he often romanticized. He was found hiding not in a tent, but in a concrete drainage pipe, clutching a golden pistol. Hideki Tojo was born into the samurai tradition, the son of a high-ranking army officer. Following in his father's footsteps, he embarked on a military career defined by strict discipline, efficiency, and unwavering loyalty to the emperor. As he rose through the ranks, Tojo became a leading figure in the control faction within the army, a group that believed military officers should have more say in politics. He served as chief of staff to the Kwantung Army in Manchuria, playing a key role in Japan's military expansion into China. His aggressive stance and administrative skill earned him a reputation as a decisive leader. In 1940, he was appointed Minister of War, where he was a powerful advocate for strengthening the alliance with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy. In October 1941, Japan faced a crisis. Prime Minister Fumimaro Konoe resigned over disagreements with the military about the possibility of war with the United States. In a move that surprised many, Emperor Hirohito appointed General Tojo as the new prime minister, believing his loyalty could control the army and perhaps even avert war. Tojo was now prime minister, while also retaining his position as Minister of War. Less than 2 months after he took office, Japan launched its attack on Pearl Harbor. As prime minister, he presided over the initial stunning victories of the Japanese military across the Pacific. But as the tide of the war turned against Japan, he was stripped of his posts and forced into retirement before the war's end. He spent his career as a bureaucrat and a soldier, a man who followed orders and championed the rigid procedures of the state. He would be held personally responsible not as a subordinate, but as the primary author of a war he did not personally initiate. Nicolae Ceaușescu was the son of poor peasants, an apprentice shoemaker with little formal education who joined the illegal Romanian Communist Party as a teenager. He spent years in and out of prison for his political activities, where he became a protege of the communist leader Gheorghe Gheorghiu Dej. After the communists took power in Romania with Soviet backing, Ceaușescu's career advanced steadily under his mentor's patronage. He was given charge of several ministries, methodically building a network of loyal supporters within the party bureaucracy. When Gheorghiu Dej died in 1965, the party leadership chose the unassuming Ceaușescu as the new general secretary. They saw him as a pliable consensus candidate who wouldn't rock the boat, a fatal miscalculation. He immediately began consolidating his power, and in 1968, he seized an opportunity on the world stage. He publicly condemned the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia, a bold act of defiance that made him a popular hero at home and a respected maverick in the West. He used this popularity to sideline his rivals and create a pervasive cult of personality, elevating both himself and his wife, Elena. His rule became increasingly repressive and megalomaniacal, culminating in the destruction of entire historic neighborhoods to build his gigantic palace of the people. To pay off the country's foreign debt, he imposed a severe austerity program that led to desperate shortages of food, heat, and electricity for ordinary people. In December 1989, as communism crumbled across Europe, a protest in the city of Timișoara ignited a nationwide revolution. The man who styled himself the genius of the Carpathians and believed in his absolute connection with the people, stood on his balcony for his final speech, utterly bewildered as the adoring crowds he had orchestrated for decades finally turned against him. Slobodan Milošević was a creature of the system, a bland and ambitious bureaucrat in the Yugoslavian Communist Party. For years, he quietly climbed the ranks as a banker and party apparatchik, a protege of the powerful Serbian president Ivan Stambolić. His transformation began in 1987 when he was sent to Kosovo to calm tensions between the Albanian majority and the Serb minority. Instead of preaching the party line of unity, he told the protesting Serbs, "No one is allowed to beat you," and in an instant, he became a national hero. He rode this newfound wave of Serbian nationalism to challenge his own mentor. Through a carefully orchestrated media campaign and party maneuvering, he ousted Stambolić and seized control of the Serbian Communist Party. He then engineered what he called the anti-bureaucratic revolution, using state-organized mass rallies to overthrow the governments of Vojvodina, Kosovo, and Montenegro. By installing his own loyalists, he instantly gained control of 4 of the 8 votes in Yugoslavia's federal presidency. In 1989, he was elected president of Serbia, cementing his position as the most powerful politician in the fracturing nation. His aggressive nationalism alarmed the other republics, like Slovenia and Croatia, accelerating the collapse of Yugoslavia. As the country broke apart, he used the remnants of the federal army to support Serbian minorities in Croatia and Bosnia, sparking a decade of brutal wars. His rule ended after a popular uprising in 2000, and he was later sent to The Hague to stand trial for war crimes. The man who began his career as a devoted communist, an ideologue of a system meant to suppress ethnic identity, became the one who unleashed the very nationalism his party had kept bottled up for 50 years, destroying the country he once served. This has been a journey through the moments of crisis and ambition that allowed these 15 figures to forge their paths to absolute power. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Thanks for watching.